Looking back on this season, that January was tough, but you still finished with 97 points. I think that has to bode well for going into the playoffs here, knowing what this team can do.
Well, I think that every team faces some type of adversity. I mean, you never want to go through that length of adversity. But we were playing with some defensemen on some PTOs. Obviously we lacked some depth on the back end, and Canada just didn't get the job done as the number one goalie. I mean that's just the truth. And VTech had a heck of a season, and just unfortunately when we gave him the number one job after the Christmas break, there those next 4 weeks didn't go very well for him either. So it was a battle because pretty much been in playoffs since the All-Star break. The other thing that factored into things was even when you went on to runs, you didn't move in the standings. We went on an 8-0-2 run, didn't move. And then we went on a 9-1 stretch there right before our St. John's trip, and we did pass Bridgeport, but that was still fourth place. Usually when you go on an 8-0-2 run, you're looking at first place, unless you started the season so badly that you were trying to catch up in the standings. So it just was one of those years. I think it was the toughest in my 7 years in terms of just battling for positioning with some really good hockey teams. And thankfully we got it done, because if you look at it, I'm sure we were written off. Someone told me this morning we had a 3% chance of making playoffs a couple weeks ago. So, guys persevered and kept believing, and it worked out.
How important was it to win tonight for you guys?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. 97 points is better than 95, right? Secondly, we made a number of lineup changes tonight, and I think it speaks to our depth of our team here when you can make 5 changes and put guys in of quality and still come out on the winning end. So we wanted to finish third, and I don't think it really mattered who we were playing next weekend, because both teams, Lehigh and Wilkes-Barre, got over 100 points, so they're both good. But I think it was important to finish it strong and go in on a 5-game winning streak feeling good about ourselves, and also gave the coaching staff some things to think about in terms of lineup decisions. And, I thought the guys that we put in tonight played very well that haven't played in a while. So, it should be interesting for the coaches, when you have tough decisions to make for next Friday.
Kind of this week we were looking at the theme of control your own destiny. You guys did that this weekend. How important was telling these guys, all right, this is where we're at? And coming into last week, you guys were in 5th place. You finished in 3rd, and you guys are playing an opponent you beat this last 2 weeks ago.
Well, we talked after the 3-3 that we lost. I felt that both home games against Bridgeport and Lehigh, we were the better team in both games, and their goaltending eventually won the game for them. So we talked the next time we brought the guys together and we showed evidence of both games where it just didn't work out because we couldn't get our goals at the key times during those 2 games. So I thought it was still something to build on, even though it looked bleak at that time. Certainly was not happy with the Hartford effort, and you can't blow those games. And that was a type of game where, as a coaching staff, you're looking at, well, those type of games can cost you a season, right? Because you can flip a coin when you play the top teams in the division. So, but I thought that confidence booster was Wednesday night in that Lehigh, when we got the OT winner by Boyder, and had a real good feeling going on the road.
You were resting guys tonight, but you still let Boyder and Borky get into the lineup. How important was it to get those guys the entire season?
Well, I think that it was important that they were both 1 game away from playing all 76 games. And at the end of the day, we wanted to win the hockey game. So I really liked that line last night in Wilkes-Barre. They were probably our best line overall. And I thought it was important that they play another game together, because they played a ton together last year, but really have not seen a lot of action together this year. So I thought it was important for them to play another game and continue to build on their chemistry going into next weekend.
What areas of the game do you guys think you need to improve on to beat Lehigh Valley in the series?
Well, I think that Lehigh Valley lives off transition and lives off the power play. We've seen that for 12 types games this year, so we'll definitely have to play a certain style of hockey once that Friday comes, and we'll certainly dissect our last couple of games against them. I don't think they're going to be throwing anything different. You don't all of a sudden change the way you're going to play just because you're in playoffs. They've gotten to if they won tonight, which I think they did. They got 101 points for a reason, and playing a certain style of hockey. So it'll be an interesting dynamic for us, and we'll be ready.
Are there any weaknesses of the Phantoms that you think you can exploit and take advantage of?
Absolutely, they have weaknesses, but we're not going to discuss that here today.
Is it safe to
Well, I think that all the additions, quite frankly, I believe we used four for sure PTOs this year on the back end. So, and we had a guy like Joey Leach up, a good chunk of the season. So all of a sudden you put in Gilbert. I mean, guy played in at 900, and the other thing about Gilbert is he's bought in. This is not an NHLer that just came in and has gone through the motions. This kid, he's a man. He is bought into what we're doing here, and that goes a long way. In terms of. Even at the trade deadline when they added Shattenkirk, you're thinking, well, he was brought in for a reason as well, not only to help the Hershey Bears make playoffs, but he was brought in as a depth guy for Washington. Next thing you know, they add Shattenkirk as a right shot D, and he didn't miss a beat. I mean, he didn't really even care. He just wanted to be part of this, and that goes a long way. And as I said, the division's so good this year. Our defense is actually better than it was this time last year going into playoffs, only because no disrespect to a Bergdorfer, who I love to death, but Gilbert is an upgrade. And Juice, a year ago, he's not the same player. I mean, the guy is, in our opinion, is an all-star. So those are the types of things that we've done here on defense. And look at the Bachman kid tonight. I mean, I thought he was excellent out there, and he will, most likely start game one as a healthy scratch. So we've got our depth there in defense, and if someone goes down, we know that we can still compete and win against any team in the league.
Gaisley was ready to come back, that he had to be patient here. He only got 3 games in the regular season, but he puts a goal up for you tonight, which I think was a crucial goal in that game after Poiters' no goal. You're going to have tough decisions here with guys like this. When somebody does a performance like they have tonight like that, how much does it make your job tougher?
Well, I've always been a huge fan of Dustin Gaisley, and I've told him that numbers of times here. Unfortunately, he didn't play a lot of hockey, and we've had some real good depth all year up front. It was defense and goaltending that were kind of the areas that we needed to address. It wasn't up front. So certainly Gaisley, we needed to get him in, and that line was so dynamite last year in that playoff stretch for us. So he certainly has given us, as a coaching staff, something to think about. And, we'll see. What you go with in game one of the playoffs doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same in game two. It's always about how guys play and the results, right? You never like to change lineups after a playoff win. But if things don't go your way, we've got a number of options to put in the lineup here. And we'd have to do it awfully quickly because the best of 5 goes real quick.
When you think of where your team was 10 days ago in the standings and the gauntlet that you had to run with opponents, is there anything that you learned about your team or that you had reinforced going into these past 5 games?
Well, we addressed the team, and you don't like to talk about last year too much because it's out of respect for the new guys that you've brought in. But at the same time, we've got a lot of players, 16 or maybe 15 with Paul Carey up, but we faced adversity last year a number of times and did a great job with it. And this year we fought it in January and came out of it pretty well. And I would think after losing that 3-3, it was one of those situations where it looked bleak. And you look at the St. John's trip, we gave up a point with 16 seconds left in the game and then responded with a win the next day. So the team has done a really nice job of responding when needed. And even last week where goals were scored and we responded with wins or crucial game goals, and so I do like the mental fortitude in that room, and it's probably a lot to do with the number of guys that played together too for the last 2 seasons.
When you look at Bridgeport's situation, it's a really thin line between making it and not making it here. But has this division really been good for your team in that sense that it really forces you guys to win every night?
Well, absolutely, because, I looked at the standings today. We had the 7th best winning percentage in the whole league going into tonight's game, and that's incredible when you start thinking about the number of games. And on top of that, 38 of our 76 games was against the top 4 teams, or top 5 now because Bridgeport's in 5th. So when you think about 50% of your schedule against 4 of the best teams in the league, it's just really unbelievable how strong it was this year, and it's the best since I came to the league in 2009-10.
You think though, like Bridgeport, they're missing the playoffs as good as they were. What do you make of this playoff system?
Well, I certainly think it's a flawed system. I think there's a couple things. I don't like the fact that there are multiple teams that play less games in the schedule. I don't think it's fair that a team like Bridgeport is first regardless of how they finish tonight, I don't think it's fair that they could finish first in the North and be in the playoffs if they were out West. You know, and I understand travel costs and those things, but the majority of the teams in the North are closer to us than a Providence. You know, last year we played Portland in the first round, and that was a 8-hour plus run for us. So to me, it should be the 2 division winners, 1 to 8, and let the best 8 teams go to the playoffs. It's unfair that teams like Hershey that thrive on making the playoffs and want to make playoffs every year, that we almost missed it with that good a team. So, but I don't make those decisions, but I certainly don't agree how it's done.
Going back to that disallowed goal in the second period, do you feel like when a goaltender is trying to make a save and accidentally takes off the net, when it's looking like a sure goal, do you think any action should be taken there by the referee?
Absolutely. I thought it should have been a goal for. I mean, he was coming across, and it was clearly going to be a goal, and that net was coming off. Now, I don't know if he necessarily was doing that intentionally, because I looked at the replay and we looked at it in the intermission, but clearly, you know, we had a goal scored in Syracuse. Gilbert scored one here earlier in the year. It was almost identical, and the referee allowed it. So I guess it's at the discretion of the ref. I thought that should have been a good goal, but again, it's out of my control.
I know he wasn't getting a lot of reps those last couple of weeks, but VTech to put up a shutout tonight, how much confidence does that give you in your goaltending the rest of the way?
Well, I think once we clinched, you know, the plan was hopefully to get VTech in, because he played 30 minutes here in the last month. You know, we pulled Copley that 3-3, and he went in, and then we went right back to Cops the next day. So he's been real well. You know, he's been emotionally up and down a little bit. You know, and we've had to control that in terms of telling him that he's had a good season and he just needs to be ready. And we do the good, bad, and the ugly post game, and we gave him the good tonight because, you know, the kid hasn't played a ton of hockey in the last month, and he came in and played great. And you never know what can happen in playoffs, right? And so it was nice to be able to give him that game, because it was well deserved.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.